Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. So just for logistics, I'm going to say a few words about what we're doing this morning with our executive orders. We have two that we're going to execute, and I'll say a few words, and then I'll pass it off to our director, Hamdi Mohamed, who will sort of serve as MC and introduce, after she speaks, our other speakers. And we're delighted to have so many council members here, elected leaders here, community leaders, representatives of people whose lives are directly affected by some of the craziness we're dealing with. And so let me dive into our executive order. So as have we seen in Portland and now in Chicago, President Trump is unilaterally ramping up his military occupation of American cities. He's even going as far as circumventing a court order from a judge that he appointed by attempting to send another state's National Guard to what they are quoting as war-ravaged cities, completely usurping local and state authority. This demonstrates to at least me, and I think to many of my friends standing with me, that he is showing no respect for the rule of law. He's making dangerous statements about American cities being quote unquote training grounds for the military. This should cause all of us pause and concern. We cannot normalize this extreme action. This is not normal behavior. It's not rational behavior, particularly coming from the highest office in our country. And here we stand firmly against the militarization of our communities, the militarization here in Seattle of this approach. We cannot be underprepared by any stretch of the imagination at this critical moment when Trump is escalating his attacks on cities and carrying out what we believe is a cruel deportation agenda. And he's doing it with masked, ununiformed officers. That's why we are here today to sign two executive orders that are focused on protecting our local authority, our values, and increasing transparency in immigration enforcement actions. So the first executive order I'm signing today is focused on the preparedness and coordination in the event of unilateral deployment of the National Guard to our city. So basically what the first executive order will do, it will proactively evaluate and prepare all available legal options, ensuring readiness of a legal challenge in the event of an unlawful troop deployment. We are ready to fight in court. We have been successful. We monitor what's happening in other cities and other states, and we want to be ready. We will prevent the unlawful encroachment on the roles and jurisdictions of SPD, Seattle Police Department, by the federal government. Simply put, our police department will know exactly what they should do and should not do, and in no way will they enable this abuse of power from the federal government. We will establish a coordinated Seattle Resilience Task Force, which will establish clear lines of communication with Governor Bob Ferguson, the Attorney General Nick Brown's office, our city attorney's office, and of course, our community. That's going to be critical to be able to be nimble, efficient, and effective in our communications and get accurate information at a real-time basis. Fourth, this will reaffirm our unwavering support for First Amendment activities, protests, opposition, and direct the city to work with organizers to keep protests peaceful and minimize the potential for conflict. We want people to use their voice. That is part of our power. We also don't want to, as some would say, take the bait. We don't want to see anyone get in harm's way when we can't predict some of these abusive actions taken by our federal government. Now, we don't know when or if Trump will send a social media post that is targeting Seattle next. We monitor these communications, but these actions that I described in the first executive order will ensure that our city is prepared and resilient if he does. And we stand united in solidarity in this approach, and we'll do everything possible to protect our neighbors and our families. The second executive order I'm signing today is focused on strengthening services for our immigrant and refugee communities and increasing transparency and accountability around federal immigration enforcement. Now, as we've shared many times before, immigrants and refugees are part of the fabric of Seattle, what I like to say, part of our vibe, part of our rhythm, part of our family. We are proud to a city where over 140,000 residents were born in a different country. Literally proud of that. And we've all seen photos and videos of masked ICE agents literally kidnapping people from neighborhoods, from our streets and sidewalks with impunity. Masked agents operating without clear identification diminish transparency, they erode accountability, and they sow fear in our communities. They are waging a campaign based on fear and also creating a dangerous possibility for other bad actors. So the second executive order that I will execute will develop an ordinance in conjunction with the City Council to ban the use of face masks by law enforcement with limited exceptions in the City of Seattle, and will require all law enforcement officials to have visible emblems and badges that identify their agency. This legislation puts Seattle on track to be the first major city in the country to adopt a ban mask on federal officers. Secondly, we will provide the Seattle Police Department will have clear guidance to its members on how to respond to 911 calls where masked or unidentified individuals are detaining people in the city. We want our officers to be fully trained on exactly what to do and try to leave, to the extent possible, little ambiguity in what should be done. Third, we are proposing an ordinance that would make it clear that city property will not be used by federal immigration authorities to stage for operations or to conduct those operations to the maximum extent permitted by law. Now, this is clearly intended to prevent ICE from using parking lots and similar spaces for staging, as it appears has been done in other cities like Chicago. Sort of in closing my remarks, we're very proud that our Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs is meeting the urgency of this moment in our communities. Earlier this week, they hosted their first One Seattle Community Resource Fair, with more planned in the coming months, and I was very honored to be invited to that event, and I would say by all standards it was a remarkable success. Of course, our proposed 2026 budget significantly increased the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs by nearly 70%, so they can continue to provide legal services. Don't tell your other department heads we did that, though. Just keep that a secret. But they have to continue their work to provide legal services and workforce development, know your rights training, and other resources. And with that, I present to you our Director of the Office of Immigrant Refugee Affairs, Hamdi Mohamed. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Hamdi Mohamed, and it's such an honor to be the Director of Seattle's Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs. I want to begin today by thanking the advocates who are in this room and the advocates in our community and our community leaders, those who are leading our immigrant and refugee organizations, who continue to express fear and the needs of our community with both courage and clarity. I know that the mayor listens deeply to their voices and takes them seriously. I've been in the rooms where we have had roundtable discussions with our local organizations and leaders. With his legal background, Mayor Harrell, and steadfast leadership, he continues to use every tool in Seattle's toolbox to protect our residents, to uphold Seattle's values, and I thank him for it. And I also thank the city council members who are here today who also do that work in partnership with him. I want to acknowledge that the city of Seattle consistently and proactively has been responding over the last few years to ensure that we are prepared for moments like this. From the anticipation of the threats of migrants being bused to Seattle from Texas, the city has stood together firmly and has coordinated, and to make sure that federal actions are not dividing and intimidating our city, that Seattle remains united, principled, and grounded. Look, immigrants and refugees are not outsiders to Seattle. We heard that from Mayor Harrell. They are our neighbors. They are the small businesses that help our economy thrive. They are our essential workers. I would say they are the heart of Seattle's growth and resilience. At the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs, our focus in the days ahead will be to focus on these 4 key areas. 1, to coordinate with local advocates and community organizations and to keep working on making sure what we are doing is rooted and uplifting the lived experience of those in our community and ensuring that we do everything we can help protect them and responding to emerging needs. 2, it will be working across all city departments so that our actions remain aligned, coordinated, and that we do it in a way that is compassionate. 3, we'll continue to expand community education and Know Your Rights initiatives in multiple languages so that every family knows where to turn when they need protection and that they know what the existing laws are. When people feel empowered and they know their rights, they can then continue to participate in our community, and we want to continue to see that. Lastly, we'll continue to build trust and transparency to ensure that our immigrant and refugee communities continue to see Seattle as a true welcoming city. Seattle will continue to lead with heart, coordination, and courage. And we'll stand firm for dignity, safety, and justice for all of the people who call this beautiful city home. I thank you all for being here today, and now I have the honor of introducing OneAmerica's Executive Director, Roxana Norouzi.
Thank you so much, first Mayor Harrell, for your leadership, and Director Mohamed for all you've done to bring our community together and bring these executive orders into our city. My name is Roxana Norouzi. I'm the Executive Director of OneAmerica. For those of you who don't know, OneAmerica is an immigrant power-building organization working to create a thriving home for immigrant and refugees here in Washington State. And I want to start with a little bit of my own stake in this. My own family escaped an authoritarian government in the late 1970s to seek safety and freedom in the US. We left our homeland of Iran because anyone who opposed the government was being locked up, tortured, and killed. Under Donald Trump, many of us whose families immigrated to the US recognize these same signs of authoritarianism as we did back home. Except this time, it's in the country that we have sought for freedom and protection. And that's why we've built OneAmerica into a movement and organizing home for immigrants, to uphold our democracy and the promise of safety, security, and freedom that so many of us sacrifice so much for. And that promise of security is currently under threat for all of us, no matter where we were born. Each day, our communities are forced to make difficult decisions in their daily lives. Simply taking their kids to school, going to the doctor's office, or driving to work become high-stakes decisions around immigration and are faced with the decision of whether they will ever see their families again. However, over the last few months, the Trump administration has progressed from a needless and cruel war on immigrants to a full-out war on democracy itself, where all of our constitutional rights are at risk. They're trying to build out a sprawling national military and police force intended to be accountable only to the president, not to the people. But Washington is our home, not a military target. And let us be very clear, the deployment of the National Guard is federal overreach for an emergency that simply does not exist. This is not public safety. This is an attack on everyday people and on the soul of our country. And we see these tactics for what they are: an effort to sow fear, silence opposition, and attack the cities who welcome and celebrate immigrants. Cities like Los Angeles, Chicago, Portland, and DC. However, even as these cities have been demonized by the Trump administration, we've also seen incredible acts of bravery and solidarity. We've learned the importance of being organized and standing shoulder to shoulder as we are today with community organizations, faith groups, labor unions, local and state governments, and elected officials to say, hands off our neighbors. Immigrants are welcome in Washington. We will not be bullied or threatened, and we certainly will not comply in advance. These executive orders send a clear message that we will use our full power to stand up and protect our communities. Ensuring the Seattle Police Department and the city cannot and will not participate in federal civil immigration enforcement. Creating task force across departments who will meet with and coordinate responses with community organizations like OneAmerica, and writing new laws and directives to meet this moment to ensure that our local law enforcement prioritizes the safety and First Amendment rights of our residents and community members. We know we are strong when we stand together. That's why our elected leaders and city governments does its work, and in communities, so do we. OneAmerica and a coalition of dozens of organizations across the state have been preparing for the potential deployment of federal guards in Washington and escalated ICE raids. If federal troops get sent to our state, this network of community-based organizations will be ready to respond to protect our communities and our democracy. We will ensure families know their rights and how to access social and legal services. We'll create spaces for communities to come together and stand in solidarity. And we will say loud and clear in a unified voice that Seattle and Washington, everyone deserves to thrive, no matter where you were born or what language you speak. Now, the Trump administration's one goal in all of this is to consolidate power by spreading fear and division. Partnering today with the leadership of the city of Seattle, we show that we not only reject this false vision of a divided country, but also that together we can build a city as vibrant and thriving because of immigrants' communities. And together in partnership, as community organizations and elected leaders, we will be ready to protect our communities because we all deserve to be safe and secure in our city.
Thank you, Roxana, for those remarks. Now I have the honor of introducing the Northwest Immigrants' Rights Project's Executive Director, Malu Chavez.
Well, today's a special day, not just for immigrant communities, but for all of us, because really this impacts all of us. What we're seeing across the country, what we're seeing in our neighboring states, and the attacks on our immigrant communities. My name is Malu Chavez. I am proud to serve as Executive Director of Northwest Immigrant Rights Project. My colleagues at NIRP, day to day, day after day, walk alongside our immigrant communities in Washington State, providing direct legal services and helping educate our client communities about their constitutional rights and the immigration benefits that the U.S. law provides. So we are hearing stories. We get to witness the experiences that our client communities are having as a result of these attacks. When we speak with them, when we show up in court, when we go to their interview hearings, when they walk through our door, we're hearing their stories. And so I'm here on behalf of our colleagues to speak on the challenges that our communities are experiencing. We know that the federal government's stated goal is of mass detention and mass deportation. And this is supported by a discretionary budget that we saw in early July, and also by changes in law we had not seen in more than 3 decades. Today is a special day because the City of Seattle and its leadership is standing strong in its commitment and using its power to ensure that resources are used to protect against federal overreach and to safeguard our constitutional protections and freedoms. I'm thankful for the partnerships we have with the City of Seattle, its many departments, including our Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs, for listening to us, for listening to our community partners, and for listening to our City of Seattle residents, for taking action, for standing up and standing strong against the injustices and attacks that immigrant communities are facing at the hands of the federal administration. Mayor Harrell, City Council, and the various city departments, we are so thankful for your partnership. Your taking action means that our immigrant communities are welcome, that they are not alone, and that they will be safe. But we know that safety does not come at the expense of others' safety. And that we, as immigrant rights advocates, are also not alone in defending the rights of our communities against the erosion of fundamental rights and protections, and against a blatant disregard of the rule of law, and including due process. Thank you. Our communities are counting on your leadership to continue to protect all of us, because again, we're all impacted. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marla, for your words. Now, I would like to introduce Seattle Indivisible's board member, Kathleen, who will say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor Harrell and Director Mohamed, and thank you to everyone standing here today. Seattle Indivisible is proud to join this effort because our city must remain a place where no one lives in fear for who they are or where they come from. When federal agencies act outside the bounds of law or humanity, we have a duty to draw a line and defend our neighbors. This executive order and proposed ordinances are statements of principle that Seattle will not collaborate with cruelty, it will not give legitimacy to raids that tear families apart, and it will not stand silent while human rights are violated in our streets. We know that words alone will not stop an armored vehicle or a deportation order, but solidarity, spoken clearly and lived out daily, still matters. It tells every person being targeted that they are not alone, and it tells every official planning escalation that we are watching, organizing, and will not yield. Our resolve is simple. Whatever comes, Seattle Indivisible will stand with our immigrant and refugee neighbors and all being targeted by the federal government. Seattle will not be intimidated into abandoning its values. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to sign it, and then we'll come back for any questions. So let's sign the executive orders first.
I just want to make sure we're not blocking anyone. Everyone does need.
Come in.
Photo op, sir.
We're here, everybody, on 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, sir.
They're signed.
Woo! Mom, you get a pen?
And before I entertain any questions, I want to thank the Honorable Sharon Tomiko Santos for joining us here to get the state's perspective, and we know this issue is near and dear to you, so thank you very much for being here, Sharon. Okay, with that, we'd be more than happy to take any questions. Yes, ma'am.
How do you think your orders will sort of interact with what federal troops might do if the president invokes the Insurrection Act to send troops here, as opposed to, I guess, what he's done so far in Portland and Chicago?
Yeah, it sort of addresses it head on. Number one, if you look at the legal definition of insurrection, and we don't believe any of the activities in Seattle meet that definition. So we think from a judicial standpoint, we're on solid footing. one thing we have been doing consistently, we're building the case, always building the case. So when we start talking about crime down, certain rates going down, safety up, it builds the case that this is not the type of fact situation that warrants the imposition of the Insurrection Act. And so, again, you look back at other historical activities in this country, we don't have that here in Seattle. And so at a previous press conference when we said, we don't need you here, that was part of the continued record where we don't think that the Insurrection Act applies here. And I'm going to also call on anyone else who wants to add any other comments to this. Do you want to?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. I'm Deputy Mayor Greg Wong, head up federal response for the mayor's office, Mayor Harrell. What Mayor Harrell said is absolutely correct. It just does not apply here. But I think that what's also equally important is that we're giving directive to how our local police department, Seattle Police Department, should interact or not interact with federal troops, whether they're the National Guard or other federal forces, regardless of the basis for them being called up. So all of the contents of the order will apply equally.
Thanks. Right. Erica?
I understand that cities can obviously only do so much, but I'm curious, how do you plan to enforce things like the mask ban and like the prohibition on local police participating in immigration enforcement and other activities? California already has a mask ban, for example, and I believe the federal government is violating it.
Yeah. So once again, we'll sort of have to cross that bridge when we come. I think as the executive of the city, we have a lot of powers to execute to enforce our local ordinances. I think our police department has to make sure our local ordinances are complied with. So in our enforcement scheme, again, that's one reason why there's a component of it directing our Seattle Police Department to make it very clear, when I use the word, the lack of ambiguity in what they're to do. So some of the enforcement mechanisms will be developed here in a matter of weeks, if not days. We actually have drafts that we're working on now to make sure the enforcement piece is effective. And we do recognize that, again, typically this is a little atypical for the city officials to have to be at odds with the federal government in historical terms. But we realize that's the hand that we're dealt dealing with the Trump administration. I come here and I come here. Chris?
You look outside right now, there's not much going on. Are you aware of anything imminent, or are you worried at all that you're kind of poking the bear here and asking for the spotlight to be put on Seattle by
Good question. No, I'm not worried about poking the bear. What I'm determined to do is to protect our communities. And I can't let the emotion of worry get in the way. So we are very strategic, we are very intentional, but we have to be strong and united. I think that one thing the behavior we recognize from the White House, and particularly under President Trump, is they're erratic. And they try to use fear as a strategic advantage. When I say don't take the bait, I can't take the bait. So what we do is we have to be smarter and strategic, and we have to know the law, and we have to comply with the law. So worry is not the emotion that I'm faced with. I'm faced with hope and faith with my colleagues, and I have strong people on the team. So it's not so much worry. But make no mistake about this. This is serious stuff, and I do recognize the gravity of the issue. Yes, sir.
Mayor, I guess this morning a White House advisor said that the president has plenary authority or complete authority to do these actions. What do you say to that in response?
I'd say that under the law, I disagree. That if you look at the supremacy clause in the Constitution and you look at the prohibitions around that, this does not give the federal government absolute power. In fact, there are safeguards that both states and cities have to protect themselves from this kind of federal overreach. That particular clause has built-in safeguards as well. So we think that, once again, they are misaligned and violative of the law, and that our executive order will be compliant with the law, as are our lawsuits against the Trump administration. Okay, seeing did I see? Yes, another bite at the apple. I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you. Go ahead.
President Trump today said that the mayor of Chicago should be arrested, and so should I think the governor. What do you make of those comments in context of what you're doing here today?
So I don't think Brandon Johnson should be arrested. I think that the letter that no doubt he received, that I received from the U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi, threatening criminal liability against him and against me, that these are serious concerns. It's not something I look forward to, getting a letter like that. Once again, as an attorney, I think we are on solid legal grounds, and they are not. So rather than, again, to use Chris's term, worry, rather than worry, we do this, and we do this. So again, we think the law is on our side, the facts are on our side, the data is on our side, and we're on solid footing, and we're confident that we'll protect our immigrant and refugee communities. Yes, sir.
So the administration is actively trying to recruit SPD officers. Have any left? And let's see what else. What does that do to the safety and
Sure.
safety and recruitment efforts in general?
I'll answer it in the Mariners are so hot right now, a press conference is not going to go complete without one sports metaphor. So I'm going to tell you that right now. I'm just trying to find the right opportunity. So I'll use it. I'll use my answer in this sense, that in college athletics, coaches are always trying to recruit. And with the NIL rules, they can recruit with different tactics, and it's usually money. Well, we're recruiting good police officers. They're recruiting ICE agents. We are better recruiters. We are a better team. We are on the right side of history. Our win record is stronger than theirs. So he's trying to recruit, and I don't know specifically if we've lost any officers to that or retirement, so sometimes they're retiring. But we are stronger recruiters, and that's part of my job as executive. That's part of the chief's job. That's part of the city council's job. It's part of our city employees' job to recruit part of our city family of employees. First and foremost, they are city employees, as we all are. So we have a better recruiting strategy, and we'll recruit the right players, and we will win.
Will SPD aid in the arrest and detainment of any criminal aliens?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question, Jamie. I just heard the word aliens.
SPD's role in
Will they help out if they need the help, if they're in a situation where they need the help? Will SPD help them out in detaining or arresting any criminal aliens wanted with detainers, any of that criminal records?
No, under the Keep Washington Working Act and the state code, our police officers in all jurisdictions, including SPD, are not cooperating with ICE immigration. That is solely in the jurisdiction of the federal government, not local authorities cooperating. Yes.
If SPD doesn't follow the law, or certain officers don't follow the law, requiring them not to participate, is that just going to be the regular process where there is a complaint, it goes to OPA months or years later, there's potential penalties, or are you going to build more of an enforcement mechanism into this?
Yeah. You think you'd take that? Sure.
So first, I'd say I think that's a little bit of a hypothetical. What we're doing here is clearly giving a directive that we expect the officers to follow the law and how they should do so. So that's one of the things in this executive order, is ensuring that there is accountability and clear expectations for officers. And to the earlier question about who we recruit, we're trying to recruit the right people. If somebody wants to go be an ICE agent because they want to take part in Trump's agenda, that's not the kind of person that we need on our force anyways. So we don't expect that will happen. But if they do, then we are obligated under our agreements and our labor agreements to follow certain processes and follow certain laws that call for accountability. And so we will make sure that those accountability procedures and ordinances are followed. But we expect all officers to comply with these orders and with the law at all times.
I'm looking more at this, it says in both orders that Seattle police will respond to 911 calls, when there's immigration enforcement action, and also trying to sort of keep the peace when there's protests. Are you setting up do you see potential for some sort of conflict between SPD and federal troops or immigration agents under these orders and what you're asking the police to do?
Well, let's be clear. I kept using the word unambiguous, trying to make sure that our officers know what to do. Our officers are required to make split-second decisions, but they're also required to be under a command structure. And so in order to avoid unnecessary conflict or fisticuffs or whatever you want to call it, conflict out there, we are asking our police department to make it crystal clear what's to happen if in fact an immigration action is taken. We know that the law is clear that they are not to cooperate, but we want to go through fact patterns and situations, and that's exactly what I'm directing them to do.
Are you asking them to confront federal troops or federal immigration agents to defend citizens?
I don't think you
Or not
heard the word confront from my mouth, and you didn't see it in executive order, so we're not asking for that kind of confrontation, no.
If an ICE agent if his life is in danger, if he needs the help of an SPD officer, they're just going to sit back and let him deal with it and possibly lose his life?
Okay, so let's keep going down the roll of hypotheticals here. So now you're proposing a situation where an ICE agent is injured and...
Or in fisticuffs or in some kind of conflict with a criminal.
So let's be clear that just based on historical practices, ICE agents don't work alone. They are with other ICE agents. So my assumption at this point would be that they have the protocols in place, direct orders in place on what they are to do if one goes down and one injured. That is not our role to make that determination now. That is their role should they take an action on what they should do should they fall or get injured. That is their responsibility. And of course, that is a risk they take, particularly when they're coming in a jurisdiction that where they're not wanted.
We're not talking about falling or getting injured. We're talking about a call for help. A call for help from SPD,
from an ICE agent?
Any kind of federal agents that are on the scene. A call for help. Is your police department not going to respond?
So, to my knowledge, an ICE agent in duty has never made a 911 call to the local jurisdiction. So I don't know what will happen in this unprecedented situation, but I'll be more than happy to give you an answer offline, because again, these are hypothetical situations. My guess would be they're not going to stop their ICE enforcement and call 911. We've seen no fact patterns in the country where that has occurred, so I don't anticipate that occurring here, but I will work with our 911 dispatch center to have an answer on what will happen if an ICE agent actually calls 911. But again, that's unprecedented and probably unlikely. Yes, sir.
Mayor, I was wondering to what degree are you brainstorming with other democratically led cities in facing these issues?
Absolutely. So I think, I have leadership positions with the African American Mayors Association and the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and I have friends who are mayors all over the country. And we look at what they do, and they look at what we do. And so I do talk to them on occasion when, I think it was just last weekend when Mayor Keith Wilson in Portland had an unprecedented situation. He and I talked 2 times early that morning to brainstorm. So there will continue to be a brainstorming process by which we can help one another. I will gladly share our executive orders with other cities. That's what we do. That's how mayors work together, and we'll continue to do that work together. Okay, well, we've addressed real life situations. We've addressed hypotheticals. I want to thank all of the speakers for coming here. I want to thank the City Council for being here. I counted you down. There's only 4, so we're good. We didn't have a quorum here. And most importantly, I want to thank the community-based organizations and Hamdi for your strong leadership. We could not have had the right person at the right time at this moment. So thank you, community, and thank press. Thank all of you for being here. Onward and for One Seattle. Thank you.